Hello, everybody. How are we doing today? Hi, I'm Sean Pinnock. I'm the CEO here at Avalon. A bit about me and a bit about what you're about to see. I've been making games basically my whole life. I actually started out modding games, a huge part of the inspiration for what you're about to see, on platforms like Warcraft, Counter-Strike, a number of other things. Actually made my own spin-off of Dota and a ton of other games. Kept making games independently. Actually, in college, made a bunch of games, paid my way through school that way. Started up a studio, bootstrapped it, about 35 employees, built a few best-selling VR games. But this whole time, I'd been making games and working on creative projects. I had this dream, and it's a dream that many people in this audience share, and that's the dream of an oasis, a multiverse of interconnected worlds and intellectual properties. The problem is that in order to make such a complex technology, such a vast amount of content, you'd need an army of people developing alongside you. Well, there's a technological singularity occurring. With the advent of new technologies like digital sovereignty and Web3, and generative AI, cloud rendering, pixel streaming, that dream is now closer than ever. And at the heart of it sits Avalon. Our users will leverage these technologies to work alongside us to craft their own stories, dreams, and even worlds. Thus, the never-ending MMO shall be born. You can skip forward about a minute into the video. Maybe a minute and 30 seconds. This is actually the first time we've shown the game in a public setting, so this is pretty exciting. Takes about 30 more seconds to get through the loading screen, which I was planning on happening while I was giving my introduction, but as soon as we get through that, we'll see the game. Cool, here we are. Are we able to get audio? If we can, that'd be great. If not, it's fine. So, welcome to Avalon. Everything in here can be built by you, the user. In fact, everything you're seeing is actually user-generated content. We're making it easy for anyone to craft these worlds and these experiences. And this is the high fantasy world. In fact, you could build something like this in just a few minutes in Avalon with our tools. We're going to show you how some of that's done in just a bit. Now, the first thing that we're going to show you is a bit of our character generator. In fact, all of the characters in Avalon can be generated with AI. And what that means is our users can very quickly create a nearly unlimited number of characters with AI. In fact, looking at these character models right here, only one of these was generated by us, modeled by us. All of the other ones were generated with AI. What's really interesting, too, about this character generation is we can generate, we're just showing human males here, but we can generate, of course, both sexes, but also orcs, trolls, demons, you name it, any type of humanoid, and then have blends between all of those humanoids. And so what that means is our users can build any type of humanoid they want to with just a text prompt and a few slider bars. And so every character in Avalon will be completely unique. Going into combat, we're not looking to reinvent the wheel here. Someone gave a talk earlier talking about how Halo has essentially been the same game for 20 years, but with better graphics. And when we think about combat in Avalon, that's essentially how we think about it. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's action-oriented combat, very similar to games like Valheim and Elden Ring, kind of a middle in between the both. And our users can then create functionality based on top of that core combat system that we've built to then have their own unique game experiences. One of the things we're able to do in Avalon is create our own monsters. In fact, this enemy here in the middle is a monster of my design, built in the Monster Forge. It's a modified version of the other monsters. Again, here we used AI to modify the goblin a little bit, create a new one, made it bigger, changed its stats. We imagine that people inside of Avalon will create monsters just like this one, as well as numerous other types for people to do battle with. This guy's actually pretty hard, and if I remember right, yeah, he beats me up a little bit here. We got some friends coming down to help. There's going to be some really awkward moments later if we don't have audio, unfortunately, but we'll do our best. So that's a bit of combat in the game. Let's get into building. So we talked about how we can easily build anything in Avalon. We're going to show some of that right now. So here's actually a set of prefabs. Anyone can start building something. You can prefab it. You can put it on the chain, start building things on top of it. We can see we're all building together in real time. We have a saying here at Avalon, and that's that creating should feel like playing. We could see someone in the background actually building alongside us while we're building. Just like playing a game of Valheim or playing a game of Minecraft. Building shouldn't be hard. It should be fun. It should be easy. It should be familiar. We shouldn't take you out of the experience in order to do that. Here we see in just a couple of minutes, I've crafted a little house. And thanks to technologies like Lumen, too, we can light it. And there aren't any restrictions on the number of lights we can put inside of our worlds. Now that I'm done with this, I could put it on the marketplace, share it with my friends, trade it. And you can imagine that if I was able to do that in just 20 seconds, if I were to spend a few days, the kind of interesting objects and buildings that I could build. Perhaps even cities. Now, I know everybody here loves to code and loves programming. Now, some of you might actually love to code and love programming because this is a game developer community, but most people don't. And we need to make it really easy and really fun for people to make game logic. And so one of the things we've done in Avalon is created this system called Merlin. So again, as I was describing before, I was a modder on platforms like Warcraft and Starcraft. And I didn't realize it at the time, but as like a 7-year-old, I was writing code. And I was doing it through a system they called the event trigger system. And Merlin is very inspired by this system. Essentially, we have pre-computed game logic that has gameplay functionalities built into it that are then turned into cards. And then people can mix and match these cards together to create new functionality. So for example, if you want a door in Avalon, you take the door card and you put it on any object in the game. Now you have a functioning door. This logic can be abstracted all the way out to more complicated things, such as creating your own game mode, a battle royale. A battle royale card you could then share with your friends. Now, if we're going to build the Oasis or anything like that, we need to go a lot further. Everything you're seeing here, the village, the castle in the background, the dungeon underneath it, can be yours, your guild's, your friends. Let's talk about digital sovereignty in Web3. In order to have a game that lasts forever, never-ending game, we need to authenticate things inside of the universe in a way that is immutable, that is permanent. And the only way to do it, as far as we're concerned, and the technology that exists today, is something decentralized. That way, when I die, or hundreds of years from now, this game can still live and this can still persist. All of the items in Avalon will be on-chain. All of the land in Avalon will be on-chain. We're building Avalon to be fully decentralized, so our users can own their own stuff, as they should have done in MMOs for decades. I'm going to show off some of the power of Nanite now. We talked about how quickly we can build things. This building right here represents several hundred different block pieces, and you can see I can instantly snap it in the world, and more and more and more of them. In fact, I could fill the entire background with buildings if I wanted to, but for the sake of time, we're going to skip that. The point here being that as a creator, we don't want to limit your creativity. We want you to be able to build the worlds and the games of your dreams. And the only way we're going to do that is if we give you the tools in order to make it possible. Now, some of the worlds that we produce in Avalon and some of the worlds that our creators produce will be governed by DAOs. This is one such world that we've created, and it is governed by a DAO. And so what that means is the land inside of it, we've decided that it can't be owned or altered unless you've got the ownership for it. And so if I want to make changes to this environment, I need the permissions in order to do that. And what's really fun about this is our creators can then create their own worlds and their own experiences with their own laws and regulations for editing those worlds. I could, for example, build another world where anyone can come in and make edits to anything. And you could have something like a world versus world situation where one team is building a village and another team is building a village and they're trying to do battle with each other. Or it could have another world where there's a city like this one, and instead we don't edit the city unless we have their permissions to do it, and then we explore outside of it to go, say, hunt some monsters. Now, most MMOs are one genre. Think World of Warcraft. But Avalon's not. It's meant to be a multiverse of connected worlds and connected genres. This is the Aperon Arch. It's a gateway that takes you between worlds and between genres. It also serves as our loading screen. And so here is what we call the world between worlds. From these gateways, we can travel to any other world in the Avalon ecosystem. Now, up ahead of us is a conversational AI. Her name is Eve. And what's really fun about conversational AI is our players will be able to much more easily create their own characters and character stories. Instead of having to record tons of voiceovers, write in huge scripts, you could instead put these characters that, again, you've generated with AI into your game, and then feed them information about your game world, give them some sort of direction, and then the rest is up to them. Now, we're going to skip this because there's no audio, and this will be kind of boring to stare at her, so if you don't mind if you could skip about a minute. Appreciate that. It's actually very, very exciting technology. Perfect. And so here we've gone through the portal, and we've entered the cyberpunk world. And again, you can easily use our tools to make all of this content for yourself. And it's not just cyberpunk and high fantasy either. In the future, we're going to have many other genres: science fiction, post-apocalyptic, dark fantasy. Now, different worlds have different permissions about what can come in, depending on the creator's whims. For example, in this world, we set it so that players can only bring in the stuff that's the cyberpunk genre. And you'll see our protagonist here, our hero, has transformed into a cyberpunk character. And it is now a third-person shooter. Now, there are other worlds where you could bring in anything you want, depending on the creator. I could, for example, make a battle royale, where anyone can bring in their best stuff. And what's fun, too, is even though it's multi-genre, the controls are built to be persistent across genres. So if I know how to fire a machine gun, it's the same whether or not it's cyberpunk or modern warfare or firing a crossbow in medieval. And that's really important so that our users know how to play these games in between genres. It needs to be familiar, it needs to be comfortable, it needs to be easy. Now, you can't see it in this video, but I am having a conversation with that robot, and it's really funny. She's a very different personality than Eve. She's built to be, she's actually inspired by a maid cafe woman, but instead her instructions are to deliver destruction to the player. And the point of showing that is showing the kind of diverse characters that our users are going to be able to create, and diverse NPCs. In fact, we imagine that these NPCs could even be your party members in the future. The text-to-speech is really impressive, too. The voiceovers are almost human. It's very interesting where this is going. Now, when we start thinking about other intellectual property, when we've developed this standardized set of controls, it then becomes very easy for us to pull in other IP into the Avalon ecosystem. Swinging a sword is the same whether or not that sword is made of steel or a lightsaber. It opens up fun possibilities for not just us, but our creators. Everything you're seeing here is traversable. This isn't an image. This is all in-game. In fact, you could go into any of those buildings and walk through them. Thanks to technologies like Nanite and how we're leveraging it, there's really no limit to what you can build. In fact, we can actually see some people down there in just a second building real time. Buildings that have literally hundreds of millions of polygons. Yep, see it right there. So when we talk about the Oasis or the never-ending game, this is just the tip of the iceberg, the stuff I'm showing you right now. All this technology is culminating, and for the first time, it's really real. Like, we can really build this. And it's only because of the many people out there working on things like character generation, world generation, conversational AI, digital sovereignty. All these different technologies are coming together. And at the heart of all those technologies is what we're doing with Avalon. This is how we build the never-ending game, the never-ending MMO. We're closer than ever before. And I started on this dream because I wanted to create a ton of different video games. And I realized that in my lifetime, I'd literally never be able to do it because there's just too many games that I want to make. And I realized I wasn't the only one that wanted to make cool stuff. And Avalon is a place for people to do all that and do it together. So that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
Thanks, Sean. Great presentation. I'm curious what kind of engagement you're seeing with third-party devs who are starting to build in the Oasis and bringing kind of cross-IP experiences to life.
It's a great question. Avalon, that's the first time we've ever even shown that game in a public setting, so nobody's building in it with what we're doing today. That being said, we've had a number of conversations with large intellectual property holders, and there is a lot of interest for something like this. I think as soon as someone builds something like what we're talking about and makes it easy and has good payment rails for intellectual property holders to come into this ecosystem, it'll happen very fast and very naturally. So, I mean, look at how much money Fortnite is making as an example with their intellectual property. Web3 actually creates really good payment rails for that. I'm actually writing a blog on the subject right now. Imagine, for example, someone wanted to create a Pokemon game. The problem with that is you'd need a ton of deals to even consider that, and it would only ever happen with a business owner. But you could actually build all of that law into a smart contract and the payment rails inside of it. Now, Pokemon might be a stretch, but long-term, what this could mean is anyone in the world could actually build a Pokemon game, and the Pokemon company gets their fair share. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Hi. So if a player or a guild was able to basically own a piece of the land, how do you police them or do the control over if someone...
Great question. So I don't. That's the whole point. Digital sovereignty. I don't police it. The community polices it. The DAO polices it. And so underneath Avalon at the authentication layer is the blockchain. And the blockchain is what essentially governs and regulates how Avalon is being operated. So if you wanted to, say, own a piece of land in Avalon, there would be a DAO that would be of control of that world, and then they would govern how that was being operated. And if it was your guild, that could be your DAO, and you could be governing how that was all being operated. Does that make sense? Yeah. No, individuals could buy land as well. Like, let's say a guild owns a world, and I want to come in and buy a piece of land. You could buy a piece of land, and the guild would be the one to govern that. So, or us, or whatever, whoever controls the world. It could be you, the individual, too, that own the world. Any other questions? Thank you all very much.